All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our RBT practice question series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please subscribe for all of our content update. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including the combo pack and task list. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Your client frequently screams to get attention during snack time. Recently, you stopped providing attention when he screams. Initially, his screaming increased, but it gradually started to decrease. Once the behavior decreased completely, the client would still occasionally engage in screaming. What does this occasional screaming represent? Now, in this question, it's a very straightforward extinction question. We've got the full cycle of extinction. So, what we always want to do is identify what is the question asking about. This question is asking about the occasional screaming, meaning we know the client screamed to get attention. We know you put that on extinction by not providing attention. Extinction was successful because he went through an extinction burst, screaming increased and then decreased. And then occasionally, after the behavior had decreased completely, there is occasional screaming. So, what do we call it in the extinction life cycle once we've successfully eliminated a behavior, and yet sometimes it still comes back? A, extinction. Well, extinction is the process as a whole, right? And when we stop providing attention for screaming, that was the extinction piece. B, an extinction burst. The extinction burst was when the screaming initially increased and then started to decrease. That is our extinction burst. What the occasional screaming represents is C, spontaneous recovery. This is a reemergence or reappearance of an extinct behavior. And once spontaneous recovery occurs, we can just put the behavior back on extinction and we can expect the behavior to go back down. We can plan for this, we're ready for it, and we don't panic even though the behavior has been decreased. So when this occasional screaming comes back after the behavior was gone completely, we call that spontaneous recovery. Maya volunteers at a soup kitchen. She is asked to record each time someone walks in the door. Her shift is 2 hours long and she records every person who walks in during her 2 hour shift. Maya records 60 people. What type of measurement procedure is Maya using? So let's be careful here, right? It's not that complicated of a measurement question, right? We know Maya is at a soup kitchen. She's recording each time someone walks in the door. She has a 2 hour shift, and during that 2 hour shift, every person who walks in gets recorded. So, first things first, if we are taking data the entire session or the entire amount of time, we are continuously measuring behavior. Discontinuous measurement happens when we start to break these shifts up into intervals, or these sessions into intervals. Maya isn't doing this. So we know it's some sort of continuous measurement. Ultimately, Maya records 60 people. Now, is that an amount of time or is it a number? Well, it's a number, right? And it's a count. So pretty clearly, Maya is just taking frequency data. She's counting how many people walk in the door. If we look at A, because we're looking at what measurement procedure she's using, we have rate. Now, what is rate? Rate is frequency over time. If Maya had recorded 30 people per hour, that would be a rate because now we have a frequency and a time component. Maya only recorded the number. And when we only have the number, we're only taking a frequency count. So you've got to be a little careful there because rate and frequency are often used interchangeably in practice, but on the exam, you want to be precise. And so rate is a little different than frequency because rate actually has a time component. So the type of measurement procedure we have here is actually continuous measurement, right? Because the shift is 2 hours and she takes data for 2 hours. If you take data the whole time you're with the client or the learner, it's continuous. If we look at C and D, those are both partial, or I should say discontinuous measurement recordings, right? Because whole interval recording and momentary time sampling, one, they rely on intervals or samples of time. And two, we're not taking data the entire time we're with somebody. Maya is using continuous measurement by taking frequency data on these people walking in the door. You're planning to play golf in the morning. When you check the weather report, you notice there might be some light rain. You decide that you are going to bring a cover for your golf clubs to block any rain. The weather report has acted as A, or had N blank relative to the golf club cover. So this is actually a question I've used on our BCBA study materials, meaning it's going to be a little more challenging, but I think it's a good learning question. Let's think about this, right? We have a weather report, and we're looking at that report relative to the golf club cover. What changed when you saw the weather report? You were always going to play golf. You always were going to bring your clubs. You could have brought that golf club cover no matter what. But only when you checked the weather report and saw rain did you say, I'm going to bring the cover for the golf clubs. What changed about that golf club cover from the weather report? And you want to ask yourself, did the golf club cover increase in value or decrease? What increased in value? Your motivation to bring that cover went up once you saw rain was coming. So that weather report was a motivating operation. Now, A and B, evocative effect, abative effect. These are maybe terms you haven't heard, but if you just think about the word evoke, that's what an evocative effect is, right? It evokes a behavior. And abate, abative, meaning stops a behavior. Well, we're not looking at the behavior here, right? We're looking at the golf club cover. So A and B are talking about behaviors. We're not looking at that. What we're looking at is C and D, an establishing operation or an abolishing operation. Again, these are all motivating operation terms. And with motivating operations, all you want to think about is the stimulus or item or consequence or whatever increasing or decreasing in value? If it's increasing, then there was an establishing operation. If it was decreasing, it's an abolishing operation. And since the golf club cover increased in value from the weather report was an establishing operation for the cover. Again, motivating operation question, but more challenging one, right? This is kind of a BCBA level question. So if you didn't fully understand it, that's okay. Think about it. Just kind of use it as a learning tool to learn some new terms, new ideas, and just come back to this later if you're not fully on board with motivating operations yet. But we always want to challenge ourselves and push ourselves to learn more and more, even if it's outside our comfort zone. At a grocery store, management implements a policy that penalizes cashiers for slow checkout times during weekday shifts, but not on weekends. They notice cashiers' checkout speeds significantly improve on weekdays, but unexpectedly slow down during weekend shifts. This outcome best illustrates what? So if you're fluent, this should be a pretty easy question, okay? We're looking at the outcome here. And the outcome of what? Well, we have a management policy that is starting to penalize cashiers for slow checkout times during weekdays. So we've changed some sort of schedule on the weekday, the consequence schedule, but not on weekends. Now, what do we know about changing schedules in one environment versus another, or in certain days versus others? What's going to happen? Well, in this case, the checkout speeds on weekdays when the schedule changed improved, but then the weekend shifts where nothing changed actually slowed down. So when a schedule change leads to opposite movements and behavior in two different environments, what do we call that? A, behavior momentum. Well, behavior momentum is associated with the high probability request sequence, which we're not doing here, right? We're not building behavior momentum. What we're seeing here is behavior contrast. Behavior contrast occurs when we have behaviors in two different environments. We change something in one environment, leading to an opposite effect in each environment on the behavior. And that's what happened here. The behavior has contrasted on the weekday and weekends because we only changed something on the weekdays and not those weekend shifts. See extinction burst. Well, we went over that already, so you should clearly not be looking at extinction burst and spontaneous recovery, right? You'll get these answer choices that have nothing to do with the question. If you're fluent, you're not even going to consider C and D. What happened here is B, behavior contrast. You've been teaching your client to identify pictures of different breeds of dogs during therapy sessions by saying dog. Later, when walking outside, your client spontaneously points to a neighbor's dog and says dog. Your client's response demonstrates what? So we're looking at the client's response. And what have we done? We've taught the client to look at different breeds of dogs and say dog. So I show you a stimulus of a dog and they say dog. And no matter what dog I show you, Dalmatian, Golden Retriever, Lab, you're saying dog. So we have multiple stimuli with one response. And then the client sees a neighbor's dog and says dog. The response didn't change, just the stimulus. So when we have multiple stimuli evoking one response, what do we call that? We call that a stimulus generalization. Response generalization is kind of the opposite. We have a single stimulus that can evoke multiple responses. If the stimulus of dog evoked the word dog, evoked the word pet, evoked the word furry, evoked the word tail, right? That's one stimulus evoking all these responses. That's much closer to response generalization. Maintenance has to do with teaching something, stopping teaching, and the behavior continuing. In this case, the client was not taught this, but just spontaneously identified the dog as a dog, which is fantastic. And then D, differential reinforcement. We're not talking about the reinforcement process here. We're talking about the client's response, which demonstrated A, stimulus generalization. Thanks for watching. Some challenging questions this week. So I hope you pushed yourself to learn more and get better. We're always looking to improve day in and day out. Be sure to subscribe for all of our content. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. We also have BCBA materials. So once you become an RBT, if you want to continue your career, please come back and visit us. Share with your friends, work hard, study hard, and we'll